it's a long story, so I'll try to give you the main points. Richard Kemp was my father. He moved us here from New York in like the 70s to Vermont, where it was, it's pretty white state. And back then it was even whiter. And my father, Richard Kemp, was black and my mom was white. So that was another thing that was kind of like, unique in our situation. We came here because he was working with IBM and got transferred here. But even though that was like his main job and stuff, he has always been involved in politics and like what most people would call like social justice. He was a huge advocate for like affordable housing. He was always very busy, like getting people registered to vote, and just had a really big heart for people that were suffering or in need. He spent a lot of time with folks that were returning to the community from prison. And then just as a dad, he always taught us. I have 5 older brothers and sisters, and both my parents taught us to be aware, and to not always accept everything that's been told to you and to question things, including questioning authority. So in the right way, there's always a right way to do that. So that's who my father was. The Richard Kemp Center came out of the work of the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance. And then that's an organization that is mission is to dismantle systemic racism and has been responsible for a lot of policy to that end in the state, including amending the Constitution to finally abolish slavery. Most people believe that slavery was abolished, but the exception clauses that made it possible to like feed the prison industrial complex have been abolished by a couple of different states, and there's like a national campaign to get it fully abolished. So that's one of the big things that the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance has done. And the Richard Kemp Center actually came out of the work of the Racial Justice Alliance's wellness working group, because at one point we felt a need to address our own wellness as Black and brown people in this community and in this country. Most of the systems that are already set up are failing us and don't really meet our needs in a way that makes sense to us. So we started working together, a group of us, a couple of clinicians, couple of community members, and started meeting on a regular basis to discuss what meeting our wellness or mental health needs would really look like. And out of that work, one of the things that was sort of a common theme was that we needed a space to come together. I think it was back at the time when a lot of people were talking about affinity spaces. And then, of course, that whole concept and even that word got weaponized. So nobody really uses it anymore, but this is definitely an affinity space. What you see around here, if you look at the art or any of the displays or the history information, everything is rooted in the experience of African Americans who are the descendants of American slavery, of chattel slavery. And we believe that the legacy of the institution of slavery is systemic racism. So while the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance does a lot of policy work and has sort of a statewide reach, we're kind of like a local response to the harmful impact of systemic racism. So we do a lot of things for adults in our community, mainly bringing community together to share meals, to celebrate our culture, to actually even learn about a lot of history, because even before this, what we see happening right now with a lot of history being erased or just, replaced with basically lies about the story of America. Even before that, there was a lot of unknown history for the same reason, because, it's been hidden, coupled with the fact that there was a long time that, as I'm sure you're aware, it was even illegal for Black people to read. So there's a lot of catching up we all have to do and learning about our own history. So that's been really important to us. And because of that, we started 3 years ago, or actually 4 years ago, we started taking an annual trip to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in DC. We call it Sankofa, um, which is a Ghanaian symbol for, it's a little bird. You see it right there. And it means go back and get it. So like learning from their history. So that was one of the most important, I feel most important events that we've been able to do 3 years in a row. We basically take a group of youth and their families down to that museum and spend like 4 days together, spend 2 days in the museum with time to like come together and reflect on what we're seeing, because I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's pretty intense. And some of what you see there, the real history of Africans in America, is pretty, it can be pretty difficult to process. So we intentionally make time to like process that and talk about that. So that's one of the big events. We just recently had a block party, a Juneteenth block party that was really fun. You know, we're able to shut the street down to traffic and have food and music and, you know, things for the kids. Right now we're doing a summer activities program for the youth. So we've spent some time at CCTV so they can learn about those tools and have an opportunity to express themselves and just access that. It's a great community resource. So, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to say. There's a lot of things that we've been doing here. We just recently stood up a urban gardening project that you might have seen when you came in. And that is something that, you know, again, in terms of like African American culture and a lot of cultures, you know, growing your own food and that kind of thing is really important. So we've started doing that. We also have like a Vermont legacy wall over there that, you know, if you guys want to take a look at that afterwards, you know, a lot of times when you talk about Black history, people are talking about like sort of all the famous people, Martin Luther King and all of those. And that's really important. But we decided that we wanted to find a way to honor Black Vermonters who have made history, basically. So there's a couple of pictures of like NAACP presidents who, many of them, probably all of them, were like the first NAACP chapters in Vermont. So we wanted to honor them. And there are some other people on that wall. It's really like a work in progress because we know there are way more people to add to that wall. But we thought it was important to find a way to honor Black people that are living in Vermont and making history. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think one of the things on a very basic level is that we're here, you know, and that we are resilient, that we have a lot of historical contributions, but also a lot of contributions that we can make now in the community. So while we're centered around the experience and the history and even the needs of Black American people, we really want to get the message out that it's not like an exclusive thing. Like we are open to the full community, and like nobody's excluded, you know. We're also very interested in sort of like bridging the gap between us and other cultures and other people that come here, especially like the refugee resettlement community and immigrants, because we know that there are systems and people and stuff that are designed to divide us for, you know, lots of different purposes, for political and economic purposes. So we're very interested in trying to like bridge that gap. So that's something that's like an ongoing effort. I personally, and a lot of other people that are connected to the center, have a really big heart and very big concern for our youth and for their wellness and for just really helping them have a sense of belonging. So like when they come in here, they know that they belong here. You know, even that area back there is kind of like the youth area, and that's where they play and they can make art and just kind of hang out. But really for anyone in the community, we just really want folks to know that this is a place that they can come where they're going to sort of see themselves and they're going to feel a sense of belonging. And the other thing that we're really a message that we really try to get out there is that we have a lot of programming and stuff and events and all of that that we've designed, but we also have a lot of room and are very interested in people from the community coming in and saying, "Hey, I have an idea. Let's do this. Let's, start a new thing or whatever." So that's something that is important for us to communicate to as well. I mean, I think obviously like for any nonprofit, especially one that is, historically underserved, sometimes undervalued, under resourced, sustainability. So we're always trying to figure out how we can sustain what it is we've created here. Um, Not only like financial resources, but that's a big thing, but we are really looking to find ways that we can get even more community investment and involvement so that it can be sustained. Um I'm really interested, like we have a board of directors, so you try to cultivate that leadership and that kind of like ownership of this space. I'm the director and we have a board, but we're also just really open to youth leadership. And we've talked a little bit about potentially finding some ways to even serve like the elder community, which we haven't really done a lot of, but we would love to find a way to do that. So really kind of in a nutshell, I would say, and when I look at the future, the one word that I think of is sustainability. If we could figure out a way to sustain this, that would be great.